if you've seen my last video, you'll see that I scaped a tank for my buddy's birthday. It was the Fluval Spec, and immediately thereafter I got a couple requests to do some more tanks for some friends, and so one of our friends went out and bought themselves a Fluval Chi, and they wanted me to do a video about me scaping it. Now the Fluval Chi is a nice tank because I like the dimensions of it, but I'm not a big fan of the filter system or the lights, so I think they might upgrade that later on in the future, but for now it'll be just fine for the plants that we're putting in there. So yeah, went ahead, we've picked up some more plants. They're all pretty easy going. And I have some leftover Fluval stratum, which we'll use again to plant the bottom because it's a nice, really great substrate. And the driftwood didn't fit in the last tank, so we're going to have to fit it in this tank, which I think will be a lot better. So yeah, let me show you the plants that I got picked out for you. Okay, so we picked out a few plants. My friends over at Pet Friendly hooked us up with a huge Java Fern mat. And what's nice about Java Fern is that not only does it grow as a rhizome, but at the end of each leaf it starts growing another plant. It just keeps growing and growing in all sorts of directions. It's a great plant, really hardy, and we got so much of it that it's going to be a great plant to really give this tank like a dense planted tank look to it. We picked out some Anubias. Anubias is great because you can float it on the top of your tank and fish will pick at it and eat it. I don't think he's going to put any fish in here that it's going to munch on this, but it's going to be like a nice stem plant, really nice and bushy. Again, it's a nice hardy plant that we can put in there. For my own personal collection, we have some Macandra Red, I believe. Nice, bright red plant. It's like got roots going all the way up, so we can actually trim this a few times and have each individual segment grow up because it's got roots everywhere. I have a red lily here. Again, it's nice contrast, big bold red plant, and it's nice and long, so it'll come out over these plants here. We have some Anubias Barty. This one's a little chewed up, but it'll grow back no problem. Again, it's got like a nice dark green, forest green color to it, and we'll tie that onto the driftwood that we picked out. And what's nice about Anubias is that you don't actually want to sink this down in the substrate. If anything, you want to have it sitting on top, and the roots will dig down into the material below that, or when you put on driftwood, you know, the rhizome's exposed to all the nutrients, and again, it'll be better for it to attach. Now here we have a couple Apogonians. I'm saying that wrong completely. So we have a couple of these. Again, nice. It's got a nice big fat bulb at the bottom. It's nice and long, so it'll definitely stand up over these. It's got nice broad leaves, a nice sprinkle to them. So again, it's going to be a nice contrast of like textures, if you will. If you have, you know, nice and bushy, tall and stemmy, tall and broad, and they're going to make this tank look incredible. It's going to be like a jungle in there. And then as it all grows out, you can just keep trimming it back, and it's all just going to keep, you know, filling up. And especially being a low light tank, aside from the Macandra Red, which does need a little bit better light, but it's going to do just fine in here, at least until he moves up lighting, in which case it'll just explode even more. So yeah, now let's get back to scaping. Okay, so now we got the tank ready. I'm going to pull off the little light fixture there. It's nice, it's got a little bracket right there ready to hold it. Again, this was the driftwood that I was intending to give to my buddy for his birthday, but it didn't fit in his tank. So it's got like a nice sloping front. It opens up in the back here. A lot of dimensions. You can really set this a lot of different ways. A lot of knurls. It's really cool. The way I love to see it is worth showing off that slope. And so it's going to take up a bit of retail, and I don't want to have to kind of squeeze around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the substrate up, put the driftwood in after we get the plants in. We'll just shimmy it in there and get it into place. Now, again, if you've seen my last video, then you know that sloping a tank, or getting a tank with substrate ready. Keep an eye, by the way, in the next how-to video, we're going to talk about different substrates. This stuff is nice. Don't gotta rinse it. Great nutrients. the Fluval stratum. You always want to have like a slope, because again that gives you a lot of dimensions with the tank, and it really, well, I mean, it just looks nice. You have, instead of all flat and even, it's just sloping the tank even a little bit gives it just that much more depth. You want to keep your substrate at about an inch, inch and a half minimum. There you go. Because you want space for your roots to grow and really dig deep in there. You don't have, you know, if you have just a really, really light sand bed, then, you know, your plants don't have anywhere to go. They hit the bottom and they spread out, you know, versus, you know, having a lot of spaces to really dig in and get a good grip. We're not going to do an extreme slope on here just because, A, we want to keep the, we want to keep a good depth in the front, which is going to be about an inch. And it's about 3 inches in the back. Might do something a little bit different where maybe we'll make it a little taller on this side. Again, we're just giving it a little bit of dimension. You know, I know like Amano comes out and he does his presentation, he's like a surgeon. And I give that guy a lot of props. But honestly, doing a good tank is not too hard. You know, you can really simplify it if you just know a few basic rules. You know, rules of thumb: sloping, depth, good plant selection. Just do your research. You know, a little bit of fresh water just to kind of get the substrate ready. I really should mist these plants a little bit. If you're taking your time to set up the tank, you know, keep an eye on your plants because you don't want to get them too moist. So yeah, well, you don't want to get them too dry. You have a little bit of a slope in front coming up more toward the back here. It's about an inch in the front, about 2 inches here, 2.5 inches on this side, and then it's time for planting. Alright, so I put the driftwood in there and I kind of pressed it down a little bit just to see where it's going to sit and how I'm going to escape around it. So I can go ahead and pull it out, and I can see where it sits and how deep it sits in the substrate. So now it's time to plant around it. I kind of keep this nearby to get an idea of what the focus points are going to be. I usually have some planting tongs, but if you don't, a pair of chopsticks works just great. So we'll start off with a little bit of the finer stuff. Macandra red. People say trim the roots. It's kind of like a mixed bag, you know. I don't always do it, and I don't think you always have to, but you can, you know, promote more root growth. Get that in there like that. Alright. Stem plants are usually a little bit harder just because you don't want to break the stems, and when you plant them down, you want to get them down as deep as they'll go, and then turn around and lift them up just slightly so the roots aren't like completely compact at the bottom. So I'll take these and take a little toothpicks, or not toothpicks, planting tweezers, lift them up just slightly. Pagonians. Oh. I'm going to kind of show off this lily in the back here. Oh. What's nice about this stratum, I mean, it's really, really light and it's really easy to plant into. You know, I've worked with dirt, I've worked with just regular gravel and all sorts of different styles of substrate, and I'm really liking this one. I really hope to see good growth because I have high hopes that this stuff, oh, you know what, screw it. I have high expectations for this substrate. Whenever you're working with it, you want to keep a spray bottle nearby. Why is it so far away? Because you don't want your plants to dry out. The substrate needs to be nice and moist. Bunch of Java ferns. This stuff is just going to go crazy in here. I trimmed one of these back. Usually it has a bunch of leaves growing off the leaves, but I trimmed it back. You don't want to really plant it. What you want to do is have the substrate on top and then have the little weight or something at the bottom just sitting on top of the substrate. And that'll really promote some good growth because it'll find it and really settle itself in there. So I'm just going to maybe try and plant a little bit of the roots, but not really worry about it too much. Just letting it sit on top will be more than fine. So I'll get that in there. Well, there we go. The other Apogonian. Put it at this opposing corner here. This piece is going to be right in the back here. It's a little cramped for space, but you know what? It'll be just fine. Looks crazy right now, but trust me, once this is filled with water and all the plants are floating and in their positions, you're going to see how wicked this tank looks. Another fern. Again, it looks crazy right now, but give me 2 seconds. Let me get driftwood set up. I'm going to tie an Anubias here, so we'll take a quick video of how that looks and how easy it is to get the Anubias settled on driftwood. Okay, so with the Anubias, a little bit of black string, and then I found like a little crevice in there, and I just kind of tied it nice, and it's firmly tied. It's firmly tied on there, but it's not super tight to where it's going to cause any damage to the rhizome. But I know the leaves, again, a little chewed up, not a big problem. It'll all grow back, and then in time it'll work its way into the little crevices in there and get settled in. Kind of had a bit too many plants in there, so I pulled some of the other ones out. So I'll put that in there, and again float the ferns in there. So get that going. Lift this bad boy up. Lift these bad boys up. Whoop. And again, we really want to have that really cool jungle look in there. So lift these up. Whoop. 1 second. Even when they're not in water, they still like to get attached to everything. Yeah, be delicate because these plants, when they're out of water, they get a little dry and they can get pretty brittle. Put this down in there. Put this one over on this side. Very cool. And there we have it. So we're going to fill this up with a little bit of water. We'll probably tease the plants a little bit and get them into their final positions because they look different once they're completely in water. And then from there we'll make subtle adjustments if we need to. Okay, so as you see, a lot of the plants kind of got out of their positioning, which is again still fine. That's expected to happen. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and kind of like tease the plants, kind of get them into the places where they're supposed to be. And so just go ahead, chopsticks. When you fill up a tank like this, you really don't want to fill it up right to the very brim because you got to figure you're putting your hand in there and that displaces quite a bit of water. So spread these out a little bit. It's such a light substrate that plants don't really get compacted down in there like they would. Oh, something heavier like a gravel. Let's get this lily up and over. Be really delicate because these stem plants can be a little bit finicky and they might snap on you. And don't worry if it doesn't look perfect because you got to remember your tank has to mature. Even the really nice ones that you see in the pet shops and in the displays, Those are mature tanks. Those took a lot of time to get that way. You know, at one point they were just a couple little stems of plants here and there, and it took some time, and eventually, you know, it got to where, you know, where it is now. So we'll move some of this Petronian. If you do need to trim your plants, again, that's fine. Just use a really fine net to kind of get them back and scoop up all the extras. Get up here. Try and get these bigger leaves up and over. Right. I think we might pick up some plant weights and lay down some of these tips because they're really, what do you call them? The tips on some of these ferns are just looking like they're primed and ready to get replanted, which is great because then, you know, we can, you know, we end up like doubling our plant. You know, it just grows and grows and grows. So there we are. Again, I told you it's going to look like a jungle, and it's nice because you have that little open area here, kind of swoops up. The Anubias right here to kind of give it some contrast. The red plants are going to pop once we get the light on there. Might position these more to the front to kind of show off their colors. And with a little bit of iron dosing, it'll really make the red stand out a little bit more. And what this one can get trimmed. It's got so many roots on there that it's just going to look even better doubled up. So put this one down in there. And there we have it. All we have to really do is kind of keep an eye on these. There we go. And once you have the light on top, a lot of the plants will reposition themselves. They'll grow towards the light. So if they're not facing the top right now, with the light on there, it'll just continue to grow and, you know, expand. Don't be afraid to trim your plants back because they will just keep growing. And if anything, they appreciate a nice trimming because it's like a haircut for them. You know, you don't want to trim it off too much at once. But, you know, a nice healthy trimming every now and then will not only maintain your scape, but at the same time it'll just promote healthy plants. You know, if the leaf isn't looking that great, you know, trim it off and the plant won't be feeding that dead nasty leaf. Instead, it'll concentrate on growing newer, stronger leaves. So there we have it. The Fluval Chi, the Fluval Stratum Substrate. A couple batches of Java Fern got from ABC, not ABC, the Pet Friendly over in Hilton. We got some Anacris growing right here, some Macandra red in the back, I believe. A nice red lily kind of popping out right here with the Anubias. They're both big and broad. We're going to contrast each other really nicely. The driftwood that I actually got the driftwood at ABC. And yeah, I think it's going to be great. Nice hardy plants. They'll definitely appreciate a better light system, but for now I think they're going to do just fine. And I think the fish that they're going to put in here is going to be really, really cool. So there you have it, folks. Fluval Chi. Stick around for the next updates on the Planted Tank series. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and be sure to comment and rate below.